What are some declassified government documents that are surprisingly terrifying? This isn't really a classified document, but at one point the US government was telling people to build your own bomb shelter to protect your family, and it showed how to dig a 8-foot by 4-foot by 10-foot hole in your backyard, and if there is a nuclear threat to get your family and go in there and cover it with a door. So obviously that won't really protect anyone in the case of a nuclear attack. Later it came out that the purpose of telling families to do that was so, if there was a nuclear attack on American soil, they wouldn't have to bury as many bodies because the families dug their own grave. So yeah, not classified but along the same disturbing stuff the US government did. When the Space Shuttle Challenger was destroyed, it was reported that all 7 astronauts were killed instantly. It was revealed decades later that some, if not all of the astronauts survived the initial explosion, as the cockpit cabin had enough protection to not be breached. For 2 minutes and 45 seconds, they were awake and aware as they plummeted toward the Atlantic Ocean. Understandably, NASA knew that the news of their terrifying death would have crippled the space program even more than it already was. We looked at this in flight school and pretty much, there's evidence to support that the crew was still running their procedures even after it was obvious shit hit the fan. They didn't die accepting their fate. They died astronauts. That's something to be admired, Mo. Read the book 1 second after. It's about what happens after an EMP attack on the US. It's based on actual government studies and estimates. It is terrifying. There are over 50 mishaps with nuclear weapons by the US Air Force in the 1950s alone. Boeing X-37B unmanned space shuttle. It just spent 720 days in space doing God knows what. Testing stuff. And maybe taking pictures like the one Trump tweeted of the Iranian space launch site. Edit. Apparently the USAF has disclosed that it's testing a heat pipe assembly. But I'm sure there's other stuff we're not allowed to know about. In East Germany, a committed freedom fighter and her husband had dealt with having her home raided while she was away, being arrested on the way to protests and all sorts of state-sponsored harassment. After the wall fell, she was able to read the documents the Stasi had kept on her and found out her own husband was an undercover agent and had written many reports on her activities with a bloodless banality. Operation Northwoods, a plan for a false flag operation that came from the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Department of Defense in 1962 and given to JFK, who turned it down. The plan called for the CIA to commit terrorist actions against US civilians across the United States and frame Cuba, allowing us the right to invade and depose Castro and the communist government there. It was declassified and can be found online at the JFK Library. Terrifying that no one knows or seems to care that this was suggested by our government to the president. CIA invested millions in trying to make cat spies. $20 million to be precise. I don't know. The way my friend's cat is staring at me right now. Maybe they succeeded. Project Sunshine, where the US government bought remains of dead infants to test for radiation. When they took limbs from them, the parents were never told. One mother wasn't allowed to dress her daughter for her funeral because doctors had removed her legs and didn't want her to find out. Is anyone else ridiculously disturbed that they named that Project Sunshine? What the duck? I don't think it's classified, but Project Thor, using a satellite bomber to bomb a city. Imagine a missile or a bomb coming from space, and before you know it, your city is destroyed by a falling missile/bomb. It was called Rods from God. Basically it would have used kinetic energy, no explosives. It would have used a series of 2,000 pounds tungsten rods to destroy and vaporize without the radiation of a nuclear bomb. It was only avoided because we signed treaties with the Russians not to weaponize space. Can't remember the source, but apparently there is a legit order signed by Hitler to his nuclear researchers saying, if they have a viable nuclear explosive, start loading into V2s immediately. Not declassified but leaked. Operation Yellow Hammer. The government tried to say it was old, but it had an August date on it. And now you said it here. They're coming for you. Run. Jeffrey Dahmer's full confession, a couple of 100 pages of pure madness. Necrophilia, dismemberment, skinning, lobotomy, body part preservation, cannibalism. Dahmer became pretty close to his interrogating detectives, Dennis Murphy and Patrick Kennedy, and provided a lot of detail to them, a lot of it in a pretty candid, offhand manner. One US bomber accidentally dropped a nuclear bomb a short distance from a major US city, can't remember which, but luckily it didn't detonate. Cultura, partially illegal, forced mind control experiments utilizing psychoactive drugs, conducted by the CIA in 1950s/60s. Not really terrifying but ducked up. Operation Paperclip, where after WW2 the US government took Nazi scientists and shipped them to America to do science. Some of them came straight from Nuremberg cells, the most noteworthy being Werner von Braun. Von Braun built the V-2 rockets with Jewish slave labor. Every day they would execute the 5 slowest workers in front of the other workers to incentive them to work harder. Once he came to America, we shipped him to Huntsville, Alabama, where he built the Saturn V, the rocket used in the Apollo program, and got us to the moon. Not really declassified, but leaked. Room 641A. It was a room in an AT&T exchange with a whole bunch of monitoring equipment for the US government. Completely legal under the Patriot Act. NSA servers run parallel to VPN servers as man-in-the-middle attacks in the same server rooms. Lol, that's why they are really only good for going around and accessing geo-region block content. Operation Unthinkable. While never fully developed, it was a hypothetical UK war plan that would have started WWII before WWII was even over. It called for Allied troops to attack the Soviet Red Army at Berlin and push them out of Europe entirely, not having the manpower to fight them alone. The plan not only relied heavily on American forces, but also called for the rearmament of German soldiers who would then fight alongside the Allies. The plan didn't get much traction, because public support by that point would be being close to zero. And the Americans weren't interested since they still had Japan to deal with, and a war against the Soviets would likely lead to a Soviet-Japanese alliance, among other obvious issues with the plan. Not really terrifying, I suppose, but it would have fundamentally reshaped the world that we live in today had it gone ahead. I don't remember the exact name, but there was a US government project to create individual profiles of all people detailing all aspects of their lives. But it was scrapped in 2006, the year Facebook opened to the public. Facebook is sketchy for sure. They have help with facial recognition and age progression software. It was not started the way people think it was. There was a lot of high-level CIA influence that led to its manifestation. It's not a declassified document, but a friend of mine that served in Desert Storm told me some things. Every morning during muster their group was given a small pill to take, supposedly to protect them from the toxins the Iranians were releasing into the air. My friend thought it was odd, and he never swallowed his pill, just as some other members of their group didn't. Years go by and all of the people that he still talks to that took the pill have cancer of various types as well as a plethora of other medical issues. The ones that did not take the pill seemingly have nothing wrong with them other than normal effects of being middle-aged. Some crazy stuff. And often the military enlisted become guinea pigs for the government without their knowledge or consent. The culture mind control experiments. The CIA basically tested various means of mind/suggestibility control through many front organizations. The main intent was to improve interrogation methods, but later expanded into other avenues of research such as making sleeper agents. Tests were performed both with and without knowledge or permission on large numbers or American and Canadian citizens. While some files have been declassified or leaked, the bulk of the files have either been destroyed or remain classified. As a result, larger statistics on the project such as death tolls, numbers of subjects and personnel involved, and research gained can only be estimated as of today. It was also just super illegal, violating the Nuremberg codes. They drugged CIA members at random with LSD. They set up brothels to trap CIA agents into taking LSD and then interrogated them. There was no informed consent. One person on LSD jumped out of a window, but his family upholds that he released info when on LSD that could be dangerous to the US. So the government killed him. This is just from the Wikipedia page 2. Operation Acoustic Kitty was pretty terrifying. Not terrifying because of its purpose, but because have you ever tried to make a cat go where you want it to? That they actually did follow John Lennon around, and Nixon had a very strange obsession. The documents are quite surreal to read. FISA courts almost never deny requests for warrants for surveillance, and the existence of those warrants is classified. In 2005 they had 2,000 requests. Denied 0. You cannot represent yourself or appeal since its existence is classified. A 2003 congressional hearing revealed that agents who made FISA applications didn't understand the concepts or probable cause and agent of a foreign power, both requirements for FISA to apply, even when the results of that surveillance result in charges. The government has successfully maintained that they do not need to say what the surveillance application said. In 2000 the FISC found that FBI agents has lied in at least 75 applications. Those applications were not invalidated. Of course. Bush later decided to just have the NSA do surveillance without a warrant. And when the Supreme Court found him, and others, guilty of violating multiple amendments and laws, Obama signed a law pardoning them. The U.S. government intentionally wiped out bison to the brink of extinction in order to disrupt the main food source of indigenous people who relied on them. They used this to force these people to accept terrible land deals or move them away. Right now there's a radioactive pile of trash in St. Louis and the surrounding rivers, which got infected with all the rain washing away the radioactive trash into the rivers, gave cancer to many people since the 1950s. With all of these terrible atrocities committed by governments in the past that have links and proof, it leads me to one question. What the hell are they doing to US right now? Operation Mockingbird, Operation Northwoods, Operation Paperclip, the fact that we pardoned Unit 731. The list goes on and on. Unit 731 makes Menzel look like a pediatrician with good bedside manner. Is there a TLDR for Unit 731? Just looking at stuff like Hurricane Katrina is terrifying. The Army Corps of Engineers warned about the levees failing. The government ignored their warnings and they broke. One of New Orleans' best known hospitals was permanently shut down as an end result. Not to mention the fact that LSU had the money that FEMA had given for the renovation and reopening of Charity Hospital was redirected to building a new student hospital instead. Not declassified but rather leaked by a man named Gary Webb, who committed suicide by shooting himself in the back of the head twice with a shotgun, wrote a book called The Dark Side detailing how the CIA smuggled crack into inner cities to be distributed among lower class, black, neighborhoods. Project Pluto. If we ever used it, it would pretty much end life as we know it. It would have been capable of irradiating large areas of the globe within hours. Lol, the most terrifying one isn't anywhere near the top. The Snowden files. The US government mass surveillance projects capitalize mass because they are collecting upwards of 50 to 75% of all communication in the US. That is an incredible violation of our right to decline unwarranted search and seizure. I feel like Epstein's documents are going to become more and more disturbing. Operation Mockingbird. Where it was found the CIA employed about 400 top journalists in the 1960s to put out propaganda. They were caught, but it never stopped. USA/CIA overthrew the democratically elected leaders to install puppet dictators all over the world. Wonder why Central America, South America, Africa and the Middle East are doing poorly? We destroyed their government and put crazy people in charge. Most of these governments never recovered. Operation Northwoods. The Kennedy declassified documents causally has a section about trailing Hitler's movement through Argentina and nobody ducking cares. Hey, thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe.